I'm for the second time here, and I do this with very big gratitude to your country, to the people, and to you personally, esteemed Mr. Prime Minister. Dear journalists, dear Norway, thank you for this support, for our common work, for our today's meeting, which was very warm and very substantial, very fruitful. Norway, during these 3 years of this war, was very principled. We never forget it, and we will never forget that you were on the side of justice and common sense, on the side of the defense of life. You immediately understood what was going on. We have spoken about it many times. You understood what this war brings and what Russia brought to us, to our houses. And that is why we can thank you for very, very, very significant support, financial support. This helped, strongly helped our resilience. And I am particularly grateful for the support to energy sector. I have addressed you, Mr. Prime Minister, and we are very grateful for Norway supported us on this track. It helped us to go through the winters of this war, when we had one of the most severe challenges, the winters when Russia made our energy grid its target, but Ukrainians withstood, and we managed to provide for the basic necessities of our people. We managed to preserve independence, and now, together with everybody in Europe, we are working on restoring peace and guaranteeing security, which is so desperately needed. And I hope that the role of Norway in this will be significant as well in the future in this work with all the partners. Regarding the diplomacy and the future security guarantees, Europe, America, all our partners in the world must work together, and I hope that Norway will be part of the efforts to guarantee the security. And I'd like to now praise your recent decision, the decision of Norway to increase the support to Ukraine to almost $8 billion as of today. It truly adds up to our long-term confidence, and it is a very strong, very powerful contribution, and it is important that it's done at this very moment when diplomacy became much more active for the sake of ending the war. And I agree with you that it is very important that in these diplomatic steps, Ukraine is in the best condition possible, that Ukraine is resilient. And thank you so much for what you're doing, dear Jonas. We underscore that only with strong positions of Ukraine, strong diplomatic work can happen, and a truly reliable end to this war. And we wish for it more than anybody in the world, and it is just because we have the war on our soil. We need to continue pressure Russia so that Putin stops manipulations and makes the concrete steps that all the world wants. And in particular, one of the first steps must be a silence, and now we discuss it with the United States of America and other partners, silence in the sky, the cessation of strikes on energy sector and on civilian infrastructure and people, ceasefire at sea. We can consider truly secure maritime navigation, and we must also eventually end up to the ceasefire everywhere on the territory of our state. These are important steps of all the parties, but first and foremost, everybody saw that Ukraine unconditionally agrees to it, and we wait until the aggressor accepts this. At least we expect that the partners will put pressure on Russia. Undoubtedly, the return of the prisoners of war, of our civilians, is important, of all the people, of children, to bring them back home. The process is difficult. On a daily basis, we fight for the result. Yesterday, we had this moment of happiness when more than 190 of Ukrainian peoples were brought home, 197, and this is the horrific moment, one of those moments in the war. They always go hand in hand, the moments of tragedy and moments of happiness when the close ones, the relatives, were meeting their close ones at home. These are important steps of diplomacy, and we very much count on the diplomacy that will pressure Russia. We have discussed today with Mr. Prime Minister concrete ways on strengthening our defensive capabilities. We are already grateful for the NASAMS system. They have never let down our people. They were protecting them from the Russia's missile strikes. It is important to us to continue this, to count on the production, on the investment in defense industrial base, our joint production, the ventures that we can create and develop. And I am sure that Europe now needs a new wave of such industrial and technological development so that the continent has everything necessary for its protection, and so that Europe becomes more independent and strong in such global competition in the world, so that Europeans have good, modern jobs. And also, we must pay more of a joint attention to the development and protection of infrastructure. We speak about this having an experience. We underscore how important it is. Everybody sees how much danger there is for the underwater infrastructure in the European seas because of the enemy's activity. And everybody sees how the challenges change because of the development of drone technology. These are new challenges, new technological challenges that every country needs to have its own answers to these challenges, and more of a joint work in Europe for security. Ukraine is also ready to join the relevant efforts, and I also kindly invite, and we are already working with Norway within the framework of existing security coalitions. And I am very happy that we have such partnership, the air defense and other technological coalitions. We can also do much more in the production of various types of drones. That this production in Ukraine is more rapid, it's cheaper, and it is efficient, practice proven. We see it, and I believe that we are the most efficient, the fastest in Europe, or among the fastest. Nonetheless, I'm sure that together with Norway, we can provide much more security to our people and to the future of Europe. Thank you so much once again for the comprehensive assistance of Norway. It is such a pleasure to be here as your guest. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.
So now we will open up for questions. And the first question comes from the Norwegian broadcaster TV2.
Добрий день, пане президенте. Ласка просимо до Норвегії.
Дякую.
I will ask the question in English by popular demand from the press corps. After the last week's events in negotiations about a ceasefire, what are your realistic hopes now? When can such a ceasefire enter into force? And if I may add, there seems to be a different kinds of understanding in Moscow and Washington at the moment what a limited ceasefire could mean, what items are included. What is your understanding? Does this proposal for a limited ceasefire include both civilian infrastructure and energy supply infrastructure, or just one of them?
Thank you for the question. I will base on the facts, on what I heard, and on what we have agreed with the American side prior to their contacts with the Russians, and then my recent conversation with Mr. President Trump after his conversation with Kremlin. We have suggested at the very beginning the ceasefire at sea and in the air, because this is not so difficult to control. That we suggested it as the first step because we didn't believe that the Russians would agree to any ceasefire, because in our opinion they want to continue to destroy us. They want to continue waging war, to be brief. But the Americans told us that no, they want to end the war. We want to end the war. So who will argue with that? Let's then make certain steps faster and during the meeting in Jeddah, American party made a leap forward, rapid step forward, and they said, let's speak not about the partial ceasefire, but about the full ceasefire. We reacted immediately right at that meeting. We reacted. My team reached out to me because that was the change of agenda with which they arrived there. And I said immediately, we approve. We confirm we want to move to the end of the war. Yes. And everybody was very happy, and I believe that overall we had an important and a fruitful, successful meeting there. And I believe, and it was our first bilateral meeting with such results, such positive result, despite that the meeting lasted for almost 9 hours. What happened then? Then was the contact between the Americans and the Russians, and then I think that people made a step backwards because they raised up the topic of partial ceasefire again. Look, we'd rather make steps forward. Better in the partnership with the United States but we're ready in this partnership with the United States to make a step backwards and speak about partial ceasefire. And what we've discussed with Mr. President Trump, the content is the following: the ceasefire regarding the security of energy system of both countries. That means no attacks on energy infrastructure, as well how it sounds, as well as other civilian infrastructure. And I raised up this issue with Mr. President Trump, and I said then, in my opinion, our side will prepare the list of objects of civilian infrastructure that, in our opinion, are civilian infrastructure. So I do not want to have a different approach to what the parties agree upon. Let's hope that the parties will agree to that. During the next meeting that will take place on Monday in Saudi Arabia, there will be technical teams present there, and I understand that the structure is the following. There will be a meeting of Ukraine and America, and then some shuttle diplomacy, as our American colleagues said, America with Russia, or it will be some meetings in parallel in one country at the same topic, the topic that I have just said to you.
The next question comes from Bloomberg.
Bloomberg Oitumelis question to Mr. President. Follow up on the energy infrastructure involved in discussions. Is it only the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant that's under discussion in terms of United States taking ownership in it, or are any other Ukrainian energy assets being discussed as part of any potential agreement?
Thank you for the question. All nuclear power plants belong to the people of Ukraine. These are state-owned nuclear power plants. It is not in private property in Ukraine. The atomic energy in Ukraine, yes, we do have the heating generation, we have green energy generation. There are some private partnerships. That is absolutely understandable, and that is the right way to approach it. But all nuclear generation belongs to Ukraine. And the temporarily occupied Zaporizhzhia region where there is this NPP, it belongs to Ukraine. And everybody acknowledges that, recognizes it. IAEA recognizes it, and all international institutions. Even more so, the people who work there, the staff there, they have received the salaries from the state of Ukraine there, and they are citizens of Ukraine. Yes, they changed the leadership of the Ruskies, illegally changed the leadership of the staff there. But all the staff, all professionals, all nuclear scientists there are Ukrainians. You know how they put them there. They took their children, abducted them to the territory of Russian Federation. This is why the people work there. For the sake of your child, you will do everything. I think that you will agree to that. And I, as father, can say to you that that is just a fact. That's why the issue of the NPP that is not working, that is dangerous, because yes, it is being maintained, but not in a proper way, despite that there is a IAEA commission there and there are inspectors there present. Everybody understands that it needs to cool down, and for it. It needs to be sustained technically properly. After the Russians blew up the dam, there is no proper water supply to the station. So this is an obstructed process that is under very severe technical conditions. The question that is raised up by the Americans, I do not know whether they have discussed it with the Russians. Mr. President Trump asked me, what do you think about this station? I told him that if it does not belong to Ukraine, it will not work for anybody. It is illegal, and it's not capable of doing so. And it is a state-owned enterprise and cannot. The issue is that, and we've heard the voices, if Americans think that how to find the solution from this situation, and they want to take the station from the Russians, and they want to invest there to modernize it, that is a completely different issue. We're open to discuss it, but the issue of property, we definitely did not discuss with Mr. President Trump. Even more so, we did not discuss the messages that you have said here. I saw such messages in the press regarding the overall generation in Ukraine. No, we will not discuss it. We have 15 blocks of nuclear generation now that belong to our state. We are united with European energy grid. For us, these are serious energy security guarantees.
The next question comes from the Norwegian broadcaster NRK.
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, in March 2022, you said you were willing to discuss neutrality, which implies no to NATO membership. Is that a question that you still are willing to discuss, neutrality?
I never stated that I am ready to discuss neutrality of Ukraine. It was never stated like that. The Russians raised up this issue when they approached us with the ultimatum. The first ultimatum that was there in the document, it was written. Putin, they didn't even suggest it, they demanded it to decrease the size of Ukrainian army to 80,000 personnel. Imagine the difference. Now the army that is there is 800,000. So 50,000 is what they wanted. Neutrality, that means Ukraine not entering any blocks in general. Then they wanted us to recognize the occupied territories as Russian, and there was a lot of other things there. We have always said that we do not fully understand what to discuss here. That is an ultimatum. It's not an offer to end the war.
Question goes to AFP.
Pierre from AFP. Mr. President, President Trump reportedly is considering recognizing Crimea as Russian territory as part of a bid to end the war. Is it something that you discussed during your conversation with him yesterday? And generally speaking, have U.S. officials ever mentioned in their contacts with Ukraine that there would be a will to recognize some occupied territories as Russian? Thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, I wanted to end with the esteemed journalist asked the question about neutrality. If that was the question of NATO, and if that is what you mean by neutrality, out of NATO, Ukraine being out of NATO, I always said that regrettably we are not being taken into NATO. We very much want it, and we believe that it would resolve many issues. We with Jonas discussed it a lot. You know, when people look for the ways to strengthen our army, air defenses, how to give funds, how to have a lot of military, where to conduct training, where to train people, which military contingents should be there in the sky, at sea. Can we have just, or we can have just NATO. Make NATO. That will be easier, less costs. But again, there is not so much to discuss because the United States of America, as the main NATO ally, do not support Ukraine in NATO. That is the situation as of today, and I believe that we I believe that it cannot be gifted that easily to the Russians. I think that that is a gift to Russians that this topic is taken off the table. I believe it's like this. As regards your question on Crimea, that is Ukrainian peninsula, Mr. President Trump did not raise this issue with me. We have discussed Crimea with him in September in New York. He was interested in how it looks like, why Ukrainians love it so much, because he heard that Ukrainians do love Crimea so much. We have simply discussed it, and I said him that that is absolutely unique nature. It's our integral part, Ukrainian peninsula. And apart from many things, I do not want to take your time. Without Ukrainians, it's understandable that the Crimea is dying because all the logistics is connected to the continental Ukraine, the water supply, logistics. What is most needed for tourism? What is the main thing for tourism? And Crimea is unique nature. That is sea, that is nature, that is tourism. What is the main thing for tourism? Everybody will tell you, tourists. There is no tourism in Crimea. For 11 years, there has been no tourism in Crimea. 3 million people came in summer to Crimea. 2,800,000 Ukrainians of those. That is the answer. You can do many things, 5-star hotels, many different buildings, but you will not bring millions of tourists there. Ukrainians there, they had rest because that is their peninsula. And nobody can do anything about that. People there now have no proper salaries. There is nothing there. Everything is just dying out, the nature.